have a sister, and in my adult life, I had the privilege of staying with her as I was transitioning in my move to Atlanta. And so we spent about 6 months together as I was looking for a new place to live and finding the perfect little bachelorette pad that I got to stay with her. And in her adult years, she developed this really great love and passion for one of America's favorite board games, I would say, and that is Scrabble. But she takes Scrabble to a whole nother level. Not only is she playing it daily, but she is on the internet and online, and she is playing people from other countries and just having a phenomenal time. So when I think of the image of someone who would be a wordsmith, Leslie is definitely the person that pops into my mind. And I revel in the fact that I can give her a call and say, hey, I need a 7 or 8 letter word for this because I am getting ready to wow the pizzazz off of somebody with my intellectual skills. And she always has the perfect word for me. And then I met Stefanie Mans. And what happens, or what do you call a wordsmith who then takes the words and elevates them so that they transform another individual's life? And then to quantify that exponentially so that not only does it transform one person's life, but it transforms thousands of lives generationally for time to come. And when I started thinking about what you call that person and who that person would be, the name that came back was a word goddess. I mean, think about it, as an author, as an editor, as the wordsmith in chief, she not only ghostwrites for people and has the ability to bring forth the message that is inside of them, but she does it in a way that they can get their book, their authorship, their business methodologies out to then continue that ripple effect and transform lives generation after generation after generation. And the thing is when someone has that type of ability, when they really have that superhuman power, they tend to be very shy. They don't come out into the open that often, right? Wonder Woman didn't come out and do her thing out in the open. She was really the one that was in the background. And that's how Stefanie is. So I am truly honored that she said yes. And you don't know this now, but you're truly blessed that she said yes. And she chose to do an interview with me. And we did it while I was in Israel and she was back in DC, and we had a glorious time. So right now, take a moment and download your workbook. And you want to text the word Stefanie, and that's Stefanie with an F, Steph with an F, Stefanie, Stefanie, to 773-993-1652. And while my team and I are gearing up this recorded interview with none other than Ghostwriter to the Stars, Stefanie Mans, word goddess herself, make sure that you're also putting in the feed your first name, your last name, and where you're from, because it's really important for us. We want to know where you're from. We want to be able to shout you out and elevate you as well. Download the workbook, Stefanie, to 773-993-1652. Text that keyword Stefanie with an F. And then sit back and relax as I have an opportunity to bring out of hiding, not really hiding, but she does have her nose down in the laptop all the time. Not for herself. Not for herself. She doesn't use any of her superpowers for evil gain. It's all in service of you as an entrepreneur who is out here making a difference in the world. And so, Stefanie, as we bring this recording forth, again, I just want to say thank you for taking a moment, taking some time to be with our Black woman startup. And so we're going to roll the footage in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello and welcome, everyone. I am so excited that we are here today for another training with Black Woman Startup. Now, I have to be completely honest with you guys. This is going to be something a little bit different than you have seen before, because most of our other trainers are here. They have the PowerPoint presentations all the way in the background, and they are doing some fabulous and amazing things with training with you on what you need to do and how you need to become and evolve into the Black woman startup that we know that you are. I am here right now. Yay! And we are actually on 2 different continents, but I am here with the incomparable Stefanie Mans, who is an author, an editor, a writer for Black women specifically, right? Because we're the best in the world, aren't we? Yes, so she is specifically here, and she is a writer for Black Businesswomen Startup. So we are going to have some wonderful conversation today. I don't even want to take up too much more of your time because we only have a limited amount of time, because she'd rather be with pen, paper, script in hand, typing away than here on video. But she stole away a few moments to be here because she believes in you, as I believe in you. As Black Women Startup, this summit believes in you and the potential that you hold. And we know that you are ready to release as a Black woman who is starting her entrepreneurial journey. So you all know what to do. Give me a big, warm digital round of applause, and make sure that you're putting it inside of the chat feed as well. Stefanie Mans. Woo! Thank you for being here.
Awesome. Absolutely.
We are so excited. And I know that I brushed over, a lot of the accolades and the things that you do. And it was definitely not out of a place of disrespect. But when this woman gets here, she has voluminous, right? amounts of information that I wanted to make sure that we were able to dive right in. So can you tell our audience more specifically what it is that you do? And then I think what's most important, why is it that you have chosen to be in the space with Black women entrepreneurs?
Sure. Well, yes. As you mentioned, I am a writer and editor. And so I work with, Black women experts to primarily put their know-how into their first business-based book. And, storytelling for me, writing for me has always been a passion. It's always been the path that I knew I was going to follow in some capacity. And it's just been, I would say, within the last, even though I've been writing professionally now for, a better part of 15 years. It's just been within the last 5 years that I have specifically honed my work in on Black women, largely because, number one, as a professional writer, oftentimes when I sit down with an author, we're not only, developing a book from a technical perspective, the grammar and flow and structure and all that good stuff, but I am helping them to really amplify their messages, to craft their messages. And to do that, it requires that I step into them. I have to step into their voice. I have to step into their thoughts. I have to step into their ideas. And in order to be able, for me to do that authentically, it has to come from a personal place. And so when I am doing that type of intimate work, I'm drawing on a reservoir of my own personal experiences, because I have, I've said the things that they've said, I've lived the things that they've lived, I've done the things that they've done. And if I haven't done it, then my mama has done it, my sister has done it, my auntie has done it, my girlfriends have done it. So I have to bring all of that experience to the table. So in order for me to, to show up as my most authentic self, to do the most authentic work that I can possibly do, I knew I had to do that with a specific group of people. And that was Black women, for me. And also to, in the motivational space, if you will, I feel like, not necessarily in the motivational space, but in the, personal development, professional development space, I feel like Black women is still very much an underserved market, for us. Because, we get the motivation, right? So there are plenty of spaces that we can go into, we can get pumped up, we can get motivated, and, people can pump us up to do the thing, so to speak. But, when I think about what true women's empowerment is, for me, it is a combination of not just the motivation, but it's the moves. What is the how? Now that you've pumped me up to make me believe and remind me that I can do something, how do I do it? And so that's why I largely focus on women who are writing business-based books, because I want us to take all of our personal experiences, our professional experiences, the lives that we've led, the things that we've done, what we've learned, and put those into books that can become roadmaps for other Black women to plot their own paths to success. So again, it just goes back to, how can I do that most authentically, and who can I do that with? And it's Black women. So here we are.
And I say, drop the mic, because we're done, right? This is what Black women started up, right? What the summit is all about. It is making sure that Black women have a roadmap, because, our battle cry has always been, for far too long, we've been undervalued. For far too long, we've been underpaid. We have been marginalized in so many different ways, and we have constantly had to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps. We've had to figure it out. We've had to Jimmy rig it, right? And all of those other colloquialisms that we know that we can do in order to not only show that we are on par, we never get to the point where people really say for us how phenomenal we are, because we were coming from a place of negative 100, even just to get ourselves up to 0 and then start moving in the positive. And so I really appreciate the place that you are coming from, because it is why all of the trainers have shown up to do what it is that we do, because we want to be in the space of, we're not here to make you feel good, right? Even though it feels good to be doing the work that we were called to do. It does feel good, but we're not here to make you feel good, right? We are here to make sure that you have the hard-hitting facts, and, as you stated, that roadmap that is going to take us not from point A, but all the way to point Z, which is the point of this summit. Let's look and take an aerial view of the terrain. And then once we get the aerial view of the terrain, we're going to drop down, right, and actually put boots on ground and figure this thing out and give you the who, the what, the when, the where, the why, and the how. I love that from my English teacher, right? Like a complete story. Exactly. Has all of those elements in there. So I love it when you stated that, about 5 years ago, and this is really a great point, because as a Black woman starting off in business, you will be on a journey. We heard Stefanie say that she has been a writer in this professional capacity for upwards of 15 years, but it wasn't until 5 years ago that she really began to ask herself a question: where do I want to start? Where can I serve, and who best needs me in this particular space, and how can I do it while also being true to my authentic self? And inside of that, so when women come to you, say I were to come to you and I have, right? Stephanie has written my story, ladies. So I'm not giving you anybody that I would not work with personally, right? And she does a very brilliant job. And we got very deep, right? I had to be in a place where I allowed you to shape shift, if you will. And everyone knows that, I'm a geek at heart. So I'm always using sci-fi references. So because it really is where you have to step inside of my skin and really begin to understand my viewpoint, walk that 1,000 miles in my Louboutins, if you will. So,
Yeah.
so when women come to you and when they begin to think about being a Black woman in business and begin to say to themselves that I have a roadmap, or maybe they don't even recognize that they have a roadmap, that they're just at the point where they believe that they have something to say, kind of walk us through what that journey looks like for you to support a woman with finding her voice and having the strength to bring that to the surface.
Sure. Well, really people often are very intimidated by, the book writing process. And it is a big process. It's a scary process for a number of reasons. You're putting your not only your name on something for the world to, but oftentimes your life and, some ups and, mostly some downs, for a lot of us. And so it is a very, often an intimidating process. So I'd like to, typically start with, some key questions around, to jump us off and get us started. And really, I love that who, what, when, where, and how, format you approach, because that is a part of the formula really for me in those early phases of development, and really the how, the mechanics of how to write a book, really, believe it or not, that's the easy part, is to get to the how. But prior to that, the two key questions that we start with, one is the why. Why do you want to write a book? And so for women those of us who are in business and we're experts and we're looking to our businesses forward, to be honest, so many of us sit down and say, okay, well, I want to write a book because I want to tell my story. And telling your story is great, but unfortunately, it's not enough. And it's not enough because back to why we're here, why I believe that we're here, is to give other Black women that roadmap that is going to help them to apply their own paths to success. So in order to do that, we have to not just tell stories, we have to teach stories. And so in discovering what the story is that you have to teach is really important. So that I want to plant in the minds of women who are seeking to write books here in this space. Let that become your why. Your why is becoming now that you want to not tell a story, but you want to teach a story.
And I want to, and if I may, Stephanie, just jump right in. And I want those who are viewing and on the webinar training right now to really begin to think about that and begin to put some things in the feed, because it's completely opposite of what we hear most often, right? We hear most often that, if you want someone to remember it, then you want to tell a story about it and move, and so become a great storyteller. And now you are adding an additional layer on top of that.
Yes.
And you're saying become a story teacher, right?
Yes.
So you can still tell those stories, but you are embedding them inside of the lessons, the teaching points, the where you want individuals to kind of deep dive and begin to step away from either the linear thinking and use a circular model, but whatever your platform is, it's really about what is it that you are here to teach, which goes so much deeper into the why, because I know, and I've done my fair share of counseling. Right? I've always, and what my counselors and individuals have always told me is like, okay, now if you had to cut the story away, right? Because everything else is a story. It's a story that we've made up in our minds to either help us cope with something, to forget something. If you cut out all of the story and get to the heart of the matter, what is your purpose?
Absolutely.
And why is it that you went through that? And I think you just brilliantly laid out that for Black women entrepreneurs who are stepping into this space, it's not enough just to ask yourself, what is my story? But more importantly, why is it that I must in this moment teach the lessons in order to support another person in their roadmap? So I want to make sure that, ladies, that you all are typing that in the feed and asking yourself that question, asking yourself, what is it that you are here to teach? And why is it important for you to teach it? So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Stefanie. I just didn't want that point to be stepped over, because we don't get that too often, and I think that's where we are missing the boat, because we have these stories and we're crying rivers, or we're talking about these amazing triumphs that we're having, but at the end of the day, where does that leave the individual who's read your story?
Exactly. It leaves them, and I don't want to discount the importance of being a great storyteller and telling a story that is engaging and emotionally resonant. That is very much a part of writing a great book. But when we just tell a story and leave our readers in it, we might leave them excited. We might leave them, emotional. But are we really leaving them empowered? We're entertaining them, but are we educating them? Are we empowering them? And again, that, empowerment for me is not just that emotional piece. It's not just the motivation, but it's the moves also. Okay, now that I know that you've done this thing and you've done it successfully and you've gotten on the other side, how do I do that? That's why I'm coming to you. And so that's the key part, is that practical application piece. Because people talk to me a lot about, well, what makes a bestseller? How do I sell a lot of books? And there certainly are marketing things that you can do, and algorithms and things like that we can play with, if you will, in order to get you on a bestseller list. But when we think about what a true bestseller is, those books that have stuck with us like for life, your Think and Grow Rich, your 4 Agreements, your Rich Dad, Poor Dad, the Bible even.
Right.
For lack of a better word, what makes them lifetime books, if you will, is that practical application piece. It's the teaching. There are specific action steps embedded within those pages that teach you something that you can take right away and apply to make your life or your business better. That is what makes a true bestseller, is that practical application. Because what happens is, when someone reads your book and they take your action steps, your roadmap, your blueprint from that book, they apply it to their own lives and change it and get results. What are they going to do? They're going to tell somebody. And that person's going to tell somebody. And when that happens, that is the snowball effect that you want, that's going to lead to a bestseller. Again, that lifetime bestseller, those books that impact us so deeply that we never forget them. And as experts, when we're talking about the type of work that we do, the type of impact that we want to have, and the lives that we want to change, those should be the books that we're seeking to write. The books that people never forget, not because we entertained them, but because we gave them a practical set of tools that they could use to transform their lives. So that is why this is so important.
And what you touched on, what it brought up for me is, as Black women, we now have the ability to reframe the narrative around what a bestseller is. Right?
Yes.
So someone told us, and I'm not saying that those individuals are wrong, but someone told us that the numbers, the algorithms, the amount of money that you bring in, and those things are important. We are in business, so we want to know the numbers. If it doesn't make sense, then it's definitely not making dollars, right? All of that good stuff. But when I look back and say, did I impact and transform someone's life? If what we're doing inside of the Black Woman Startup Summit, if it has impacted one person, that to me is a bestseller, because this is now part of my legacy.
Yes.
part of what I have been able to achieve in supporting another individual with not just talking about it, not just thinking about it, not just dreaming about it, but as you stated, making the moves about it, right? And doing the work that is required, but having a system that also works.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
That's, it's just like, grandma's pies or grandma's cakes. When we were in the kitchen with her, what made that a bestseller and why grandma's pies, you can't just go to anybody's house and get a sweet potato pie, right?
Yeah.
It's not a pumpkin pie, it's a sweet potato pie, right? Is because grandma had a formula, and in the love and the recipe and the mixing and the lineage that she passed down, it was a legacy that said something different. And this is the work that I see you doing as an author, and why we are looking at and exploring for Black women as entrepreneurs and beginning to start out in their entrepreneurial journey. Why becoming an author and becoming an author of a business-based methodology and book is something that they can add to their strategic plan for growth and development and putting inside of their purpose. So what are some of the other things that you have witnessed as a writer, an editor, an author yourself, in the ways that Black women have been able to utilize their books to transform not only their business, but then the lives of other individuals?
Well, in the context of how a great book can help your business, I think that's, certainly a valid point. And it's one, writing a book should be strategic. It should fit into your overall business strategy. And you want to think about, just stepping back to that, why am I writing this book? I know that I want to write it to help to transform other people's lives, other women's lives, but in the context, on top of that, in the context of my own business, what is this book going to do for me? Is it going to position me as an expert in my industry? Is it going to open the doors for me to book bigger, larger, more lucrative speaking engagements? Is it going to be, which is one of my favorites, that door opener, so to speak, to your higher product, your more premium services within your consulting company or within your business? If a business-based book is done well, it builds trust, with your audience, and it gives them that DIY piece, so to speak, of your business, that they can say, okay, well, I can take this book, I can walk through this, I'm going to apply these things, these action steps that she taught me to make my life or my business better, and now I've mastered that, ideally. So now I need to come back to you and say, okay, well, what's level 2? What do we do now? And that level 2, ideally, is going to be your premium one-on-one services. So those are my favorite, some of my most favorite case studies when I'm working with Black women in business to create books, when they come and say, you know what, I had this, low tier, workshop that was, wearing me out, grueling me, this group mastermind. It was grueling for me. I didn't love the work. I really love working one-on-one with women who are developed and prepared and ready to work with me and ready to make that investment in my higher end services. So I pointed them, when they came to me and weren't quite ready for that level, I pointed them to my book, and they got that book, mastered those, mastered the methodology in there, mastered that roadmap, and now we're ready to go. So, you do want to think strategically, how does this book fit into, to your point, what my overall strategy is for my business? What am I looking to do? What am I looking to achieve? And so you then, with that in mind, write the book that's going to help you to get to those objectives.
And as we're here with our audience, I just have a question for you. Sure. How often, well, this is for the audience, and then we'll ask you, how often have you thrown away a book? Seriously, how often have you thrown away a book? And make sure that you go ahead and put that in the feed, because I'm curious. Okay, you've never, right, okay, I see that. You've never thrown away a book. Right, neither have I. Like, books travel with me wherever I go. Or,
Yeah.
I mean, even if they go in storage, but it is just something about a spine, the hardback, the cover, the inside cover, even when it's more like I have Dr. Seuss books that the front cover has been ripped off from my childhood that I still keep.
Yeah.
Right. And I went over it with my children. Now my grandchildren, right, are going after that book. People do not throw away books. I'll give books away. I'll send them to the library. I'll donate them, but people don't throw away books. This is why the atrocities when they were burning books and, trying to subjugate people and taking away the libraries and all of those things, why it was so insightful, because there is something that is just more credible about an individual who has taken the time, right, to sit down and actually put words and memorializing them in, now what we know in terms of just the digital age, in terms of, having that print document that's there. So it really is an important part of the strategy. And I promise you that even if you're just starting off as a business owner and an entrepreneur, your credibility skyrockets to a completely different level that is actually quantifiable when individuals see you as an expert, because you're not only an expert because you've spent 15, 20, 30 years in the industry, but because you took 6 months to a year to actually sit down and take all of that credibility and knowledge out of your head and put it inside of a book. So if you are thinking about it, it is absolutely a must-do tool that you can utilize inside of your business. And it's one of the things that we definitely do go through and talk about inside of Black Women Startup when you're in the Institute, how you can leverage that book to open door and get access to places that you didn't have accessibility to before, or utilizing it, as Stefanie said, on the other side, when someone is not able to afford your products or services, or are just not ready to make that next step, they can take that book and continue to work with you, even if they are doing it from afar. And we have so many success stories of individuals that have actually done giveaways with their books. They've gone to a conference, they've given that book away, and a person was not able to work with them right then, but 2, 3 years later, because of that book, they were like, I picked up that book and oh my God, I couldn't remember your name from the conference, but I saw the book that you gave me and I'm ready to work with you now. So massively, massively important. So I know I was afraid, right, to say, oh, here's another thing that I have to do as a business owner, right? Which is write a book, write a chapter, get it out. Like, I thought that it was the most daunting thing. And it's not that I don't believe that I'm not a good writer or possibly a storyteller, but it was just the macro view.
Sure.
So what are some of the benefits of working with someone like yourself who can, just say, hey, you don't have to take that on, because that's being part of being an entrepreneur. You have to really begin to assess for yourself the areas that you're really, really great in and the things that you should be doing versus the things that you should actually outsource or grab some support to come in. So, what are some of the things that you can support the woman who is sitting on the other side and she's saying to herself, I know I got 20, 30, 40 years of information in my head that needs to get out. But if you are asking me to look at another thing that I need to do, trying to start my business, my head is going to explode. Right. So what are some of the benefits of working with an individual like yourself?
One, it is definitely that alleviating the burden, if you will, to your phenomenal point of having just one more thing to do in your business. While we can do everything, as Black women, I believe that, wholeheartedly. I don't believe that we should do everything. And writing your own book oftentimes falls into that category of the things that you should not do. Because, again, it takes a lot of time, out of your day and out of your life that you can be doing the things that are better use of your time and your business. And we all have gifts and expertise, which is the beauty of us collaborating together. So while everyone, has definitely has something to say, writing may not necessarily be your strong suit or your strength, and that's totally fine. And that's why I am here. Oftentimes a lot of my clients are, highly intellectual, very smart women. And so, even when we're crafting content for their websites or other pieces of their business, they often struggle with that transition of tone, from that academic smarty pants, professional, into engaging, emotionally resonant storytelling. So that's one of the benefits of working with a professional writer, is that's what that writer does, is craft compelling stories. So they take your great content and your great know-how, and all that stuff, like you said, in your head, and translate that into great stories that really hit the hearts of the people that you are seeking to reach. So it's a time saver. For one, it is an opportunity to put out the best product that you can possibly put out, which is super important, by leveraging the expertise of a professional writer. And it really is, I say all the time that I don't write for women, I write with them, and so it is very much an intimate relationship that we build over the course of developing, particularly a book, because that is such a larger, a bigger piece in a longer period of time. So you have the benefit, if you will, of working with someone who gets you, who hears you, who sees you, in a way oftentimes that you don't even see yourself. And it, at the end of it, it's a very empowering experience, because, at the end, you walk away with that, that bolstered confidence and that courage, like, wow, I did this, and, you're putting something out, which is, my ultimate goal at the end of the day, that you can be proud of. I want, your daughters to pick up that book. I want your sisters, your grandmother, your mother to pick up that book, and be proud of it. I want you to be proud of it. I don't want to create something that it's like, oh, okay, well, I just, put my name on a cover. But that in those pages is really, representation of you that you can be proud of, and that it is a part of your legacy in that way. Like I said, saving time, leveraging the expertise of a professional, and that, that good girlfriend relationship that you get to build, with, when you're working with the right writer, are all great reasons to think about outsourcing that piece of your outsourcing your book development.
Right. Outsourcing that piece of your business.
Yeah.
So a really good friend of ours, Trevor Otts, he always has this famous quote that I was just like, that's kind of brilliant, right?
Yeah, kinda.
Right. The answer to who does not have to be you. Right?
Absolutely.
The answer to who does not have to be you. And it's definitely because we're all high achieving women. Right.
Yes.
And we have gotten to where we are because we can wear multiple hats. We can, if there is 2% of the population who are good at multitasking, we fall in that 2%. Right. However, it's not something that we should be doing, because we can do more in our zones of genius if we allowed ourselves and gave ourselves permission. Right.
Yes.
And that's really what it boils down to. Giving yourself permission to allow another person to come in and support you. Yes. And this is what authorship and that relationship begins to look like, is allowing another person to come in and to support you. Because I truly get it. I am still, and it's one of the things that I work on currently, and I hear all the time, it's like, you're too smart. You sound too smart. And I'm like, what? This is how we talk, right?
Right.
Not realizing that I came from, a highly educated family. My parents are in education, doctorate degrees. My
Absolutely.
sisters are professors. And so this is just the language. I was in a completely academic society. So this is our language. And so it seems normal. But then when we go out into the rest of the world, we're looking at people like, why don't you understand this? I'm speaking perfectly good English
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it's not that people don't understand you. It's just like, I need you to bring it to a level where I can resonate with you, which is really
Yes.
what's most important. Not that they don't
Absolutely.
understand you, not that they don't feel you, but they want to be able to resonate with you. And that is a skill, right? A
Yeah.
skill that
Yeah.
you're involved in each and every day. It's not something that I dive into or even have to play around in very often. So, quite naturally, it was one of the things that I had to accept about myself, that I'm not the best at this.
Yeah. And
And that's
that's so
okay.
cool. Yeah,
Right.
it's totally cool. I mean, I think, particularly for us as Black women, we, like I said, we want to do everything. We carry that narrative of being the superwoman and doing everything. And, on top of that, belief that many of us have internalized, that success is always synonymous with struggle, that
Right.
everything has to be hard, and
I gotta claw my way to the top.
yeah, exactly. And it's not to, diminish, it's a conversation, opener that I have with my clients all the time, that this is not easy. I'm not going to sell you that this is, you pay a fee and put your feet up and that's the end of it. You just,
Right.
get to sit and wait on the other side. There is work, involved. If I'm working, you working.
You work it.
But I'm not, I'm working a little harder than you, so, because this is what I do, and, I've committed to creating a result for you. But it's not to say that it's not work, but it doesn't have to be hard. If you've been, thinking about writing a book, for 5 or 10 years, and, 45 drafts, on your laptop, and, all that kind of stuff, that is an indication that it's probably time to let somebody else step in, to support you, through the process. So, you struggling your way through it is not going to, make the end result any greater. You've already done that heavy lifting. You've already done that hard work in your life. And so now it's time to, get somebody to help you to bring that thing to the finish line. So, definitely, I wholeheartedly agree. Give yourself that permission, to let somebody come in and help you.
Right. Absolutely.
Mhm.
So, how do I know if I'm on the fence, or if writing a book is the right course of action for me at some point in my business? Are there questions that I can begin to ask myself, just on a basic level? Want to just make sure that we are giving the moves, right? The motivation. So we, understand why it's important, putting a legacy together. It could be a strategic leveraging point inside of your business. You have something that it is that you want to teach. But if I'm sitting at home right now and I'm kind of on the fence, or didn't even know there was a fence to climb, what are some of the questions that I can kind of ask myself that would either say definitively, yes, I should be writing a book, or nah, not so much?
Sure. Great question. So some of the things that I suggest, that potential, if you're thinking about writing a book, that you begin to think about, the first of it is, do I have the courage to write a book? Because it is, as we, alluded to, a very, vulnerable process, sharing, some parts of yourself that you may not have shared before, and, putting yourself out there in a way that you haven't done so before, both with your writer and ultimately with your reader. So do you have the courage, to write the book? And, not only just to, the writing of the book and producing the book is the end result, but initially asking yourself questions like, well, what do I really believe in? What do I really stand for, when I think about, what I want to share with people? What do I want them to take away from this book? in, you know, what is it that I want people to really know me for? And it's not, you know, necessarily, you know, oftentimes just like I said, the story that you will tell, but it is, you know, again, that core belief, you know, of what you really, you know, believe in. When people are looking for the expert, you know, that must have woman. And until you are willing to be step into that leadership space, which is to be courageous, to be willing to say, regardless of what everybody else is saying, this is what I believe in and this is what I stand on, then, you know, because you have to, you know, be willing to do that in order to put this book out there and to make it a success. You know, maybe we got to do a little bit more work, you know, is in some other areas. I know it's in you, but you have to know that it's in you. You have to be willing again to stand on something, to stand for something, and to put that out there, you know, into the world. Secondly, you know, beyond the courage, then we lead into the conversation. What am I going to put into this book? What do I have to say that hasn't already been said? You know, what am I leading with? What am I lending to the conversation or to the topic of my expertise that hasn't already been said? That's disruptive. And again, it steps back to that courage piece, because that takes balls, you know, for lack of a better word, to put, you know, that, you know, put yourself out there in a way that could be polar opposite of what everybody else in the world is saying about something. So, you know, that courage is important. The conversation piece, I would say, is important as well. Looking for, you know, again, that story that you can teach. When you think about the experiences of your life, what have you learned from them? What did you take away that made a difference and you were able to translate into results in your own life? And what have you been able to translate into the lives of other people? You know, and I believe that for most of us, we've done that in some capacity. It's just a matter of sitting down and really thinking about what that looked like, you know, what that blueprint could be that we could use as the framework for a book. So definitely the courage, definitely the right conversation, something disruptive that hasn't been said before, personal and professional experiences that you've learned something from, and again, that have translated into results for yourself and for other people. And the, you know, community piece, you know, do you have an audience that's ripe and ready for this book? Not only is that important from a sales perspective, but oftentimes we are setting out to write a book that we want to write, but may not be the book that our audience needs. And so when you have a community of women who you're sharing content with already, it gives you an opportunity to hear, what are they saying about what they need? What problems are they really facing? What gaps exist in their knowledge already? You know, do a little bit of ear hustling. As I like to call it, to really get a sense for, okay, what, you know, I know this is the book that I think people need, but what is it that they really need? And people, if you listen long enough, will tell you. So I think it's super important to take inventory, if you will, of your community. And if you don't have one already, ear hustle in somebody else's community. There are some great Facebook groups out here, great meetups if you you know, want to get out in person, and just listen and talk to women, exchange information and conversation around, okay, well, this is kind of what, you know, this is what I do, you know, and have you dealt with that before? Have you experienced that before? You know, have you read anything that you wish went a step further or left something out, you know, of the conversation? So it's a bit of inventory story taking that you want to do. If as you're thinking about, okay, what is the book that I want to write? And that, for me is, going back to that point about, the book that we want to write is not always the books that, people need. It's super important, not just from a sales perspective, but from an impact, perspective. If we think about, let's say Beyonce, for example, decided that she was only going to write one book in life, and she puts up one of those super cool Instagram posts. It's like, okay, Beehive, I can either write, a book, that can teach you step by step how to build a $1 billion empire, or I could write a book about, my parents' marriage and their divorce and how that shaped me as a woman and shaped my perspective on relationships. If you think about the book right now that's going to move the needle in your life, now, this is dependent upon where you are and what you're doing in your life. But for me, I can think of one, I could walk down the street, myself included, and find one out of every 3 women who could talk to me about relationships and right. business. But how many women who have done it, who have that roadmap, that blueprint, those receipts, can teach me emphatically how to build a $1 billion empire? So right. It's, that those are the types of questions that you want to dig into is, okay, I could write about a lot of things, but what is the book that's going to make the most impact? What is the book that's going to move the needle for most, for the women that I'm seeking to reach? And what is the book that I know the most about, that nobody else can write this book the way that I would write it? Mm-hmm. So those are the types of questions that I think are great for you to get started with as you're thinking about becoming an author.
And those are excellent. And so I heard the 3 C's, right? The first one C was, do I have the courage, right? Am I in a position right now where I have the courage to step forward and put my voice inside of the space? And then the second, C is, what is this conversation? Now that I am saying yes or no, right? So if you don't have the courage right now, it's okay. Know what the next step is, because one day you may have courage, right? Just like Dorothy, the lion didn't think he had courage at the time, but then he went on the journey, he followed the yellow brick road, and somewhere in there, he found his heart.
It's in you,
It's in you. So you may not have the courage right now, but we're just starting up. We're Black women starting up. And so you may find the courage later. And so when you find the courage, the next step is, now, what is my conversation? What is it that I am saying, and the way that I'm saying it that is so disruptive? And sometimes it's not even about what you're saying, but it's the order and how you put it in. Sure. Right? That can be the disrupting factor. How many, candy bars are there that have nuts, that have caramel, that have chocolate? But I'm telling you, Snickers is the one for me. So whatever their formula is, right, that is the one that I gravitate to. And your conversation, where it may not necessarily be unique in that you have uncovered this quantum physics realm that didn't exist before, right? It may be the way that you are putting it together that speaks very uniquely to an individual, that allows them to complete their pathway and get on that trajectory. So that disruption is, how are you putting it out in the marketplace? What is your conversation around it? And how is it unique to the audience that is listening to you? Which then goes into the third C, which is, where is your community? Where is your tribe? Are the individuals that you are called to serve, are they the ones that are looking back at you and saying, yes, you're speaking my language and I'm understanding it specifically? Just like Stefanie and I had to do, and come into the awareness of, Black women, that's our thing, right? Yeah. Stefanie does it in authorship realm. I do it in not only just Black women, but Black women who are starting specifically their businesses, not Black women who have been in business for 15, 20 years, that have multi-million dollar empires, but I am specifically speaking to the Black woman who is starting the business from scratch or who has not gotten traction. So she's still in the startup phase of her business.
Yes.
And so the questions and what we talk about and what we do are specifically geared toward that community. Now, that community may look small when you look at it from a numerical perspective, but if you are speaking to them and if you are giving them exactly what they need, they will be the most powerful tool to move you along, because it doesn't take a lot, right? Sometimes you don't need new or more customers. You just need the people who are already with you buying more. Right? Apple doesn't necessarily gain any more market share with what it is that they're doing, but they have an ecosystem that their loyal tribe and subscribers of Apple are with them. And when they come out with iteration 25 of the iPhone, people are there like, I'm buying it. I got it. I bought it. I'm pre-ordering it. Right? So they are not necessarily going out and getting new clients. So you don't have to have a large community. You just have to speak to your community in a way where they're like, yep, I am with you until the wheels fall off. Absolutely. So I think those are great pieces of information and questions that our Black women who are starting up can take with them to begin to ascertain for themselves if writing a book is part of their strategic plan with starting their business. Now, I say yes, and I think Stefanie would be a yes. But it's not about what we say. Really, it is truly about what you say. And I know Stefanie and I, we could talk your ears off, but we only we only have so much time tonight. So we definitely have to have Stefanie back. So if you want Stefanie back to talk and drop some more juicy nuggets, make sure that you're putting that back in the feed, saying we want Stefanie, more of Stefanie, more of Stefanie. But Stefanie, tell us how we can, and she is one of our faculty trainers here at Black Women Startup. So she will be around and she will continue to contribute. Is there a free gift or an assessment or an offer, something like that you want to let our women, make our women aware of?
Oh, wow. Well, I definitely have a cool worksheet that we will get out to everyone that just touches on some of the information that we share here today. So they have it all in one place. So if you were listening or watching while you were driving or multitasking, as we often do, we will make sure that we get that out to you. So if you want to drop your email address in the comments below, we will make sure that we loop back to you and get that to you.
Well, thank you so much, Stefanie. Again, we are so appreciative that you are here with Black Women Startup, because it is important that we see individuals who look like us, who sound like us, who have experiences like us, who are also working with us and helping us to reach our highest heights. So I will allow parting words to fall over on your end. So is there anything that you want to say to our Black women who are starting up?
I would say go for it. I'm so excited for opportunities and incubators, and experiences like this where we can come together and share our knowledge and not just, motivate each other, but give each other those moves to help to, move the needles in our lives and in our businesses. And, just stepping back to what we talked a little bit about was the courage to write your book. I believe, to your point, that is in us. That you have the courage, you have the knowledge, you have the information, you have everything you need inside of you that's God-given to do the work that you feel called to do. So don't be afraid to step out there. Don't be afraid to take that next step. Don't be afraid to tell the world what you stand for, because that is what we are so much in need of, your necessary voice in the world. To, not just stand for yourself, but to stand for the other women that you feel called to serve. So, just do the damn thing. Like I'm just, so ready.
Say, I'm just saying.
Right, exactly. Like if I could just be frank, I'm just so excited to see what comes, out of this space, because I know that there are so many brilliant women who are stepping in here, not just as faculty, but to learn. And we are, going to learn as much from you guys as you will be learning from us. So, it's just, it's an exciting time for Black women right now. And, like I said, I just can't wait to see what comes out of our work together.
Oh, excellent. Thank you so much. And
Yeah, thank
we'll
you.
leave on the note that you stated, that we are here to learn just as much as we are to teach. And that's one of my favorite quotes by Richard Bach. You teach best what you most need to learn.
Yes.
And so in all of my learnings, right,
Yeah.
I'm constantly learning how to continually start up, how to reinvent myself, and to grow higher and higher in what I do and how I serve and how I teach. And each one of our trainers that are here have that same sentiment, which is why they give of their time and come here, and they do it so that each and every one of you who have earned a scholarship to be here can begin your journey a little bit further than we did. And that's why we do it, because
shortening the learning curve. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah. I was just going to say, shortening that learning curve, anything that we can do, for each other to help, to shorten that learning curve is so necessary. And, just a reminder that business is evolution. Where you start is not where you have to stay. I think so many of us are fearful of taking that initial step because we believe that it could be our last, but it's not. It's not.
Say, spoiler alert, you will make it to the other side.
Exactly. So this is very much about getting started, and the evolution piece we fear it, but we really should embrace it because it's so exciting to look back and say, oh, wow, this is where I thought I was going to end up. And I am so far from that, or you could be a complete 180, from where you thought you would be. But the key is that initial step. So yes.
Well, thank you so much. We are closing out with Stefanie Mann, our incomparable, the incorrigible, just magnificent in so many different ways. And I'm saying that from experience. I have not only read her work, but she has also worked for me and written my story in part. And I'm so appreciative because she did step into my skin, and she did get my tone, my tenor, and made it conversational, and it came out brilliantly. So if you are thinking about it, make sure that you go back, you download the workbook that we have for you, and go through those questions for yourself, because this really can be a part of you being a Black woman who starts up. So with that in mind, it is not what you call me, but it's what I answer to that's most important. And my name is E.R. Spalding, and I am a Black woman startup. All right, so have a great day, evening, morning, wherever you are in the world. Be blessed. Bye now.